There is no escape from the revenge and rage in the Thunder Cage. I'm Joe Renton with the Retro View of WCW Superbrawl 4, where everybody in Albany, Georgia got on the floor into the Albany Civic Center Dinosaur. 7,600 fans of good old-fashioned Southern wrestling. Ted Turner said WCW is about to dominate the globe of professional wrestling. And they had 110,000 pay-per-view buys according to WrestleNomics. Check out WrestleNomics. They do great work. Brandon Thurston and his crew. So much great content, so many facts and figures, and I'm going to talk about those in just a little bit. But yeah, WCW is in a weird transitional period at this point because Ted Turner loved wrestling, put bad people in charge of it, and yeah, Eric Bischoff at this point had been made executive vice president. It was making some cuts, and they were having some growth, but they were still shooting at Disney MGM Studios, and then they were doing their pay-per-views, doing their clashes. Things are improving slightly, but they still had a ways to go. They would bring in Hulk Hogan just, months after this. And, yeah, Bash at the Beach 94 would do pretty well, and then things would start to downturn because, WCW fans weren't necessarily, receptive to Hogan because they had been told that he was the enemy, the sea anemone of WWF. Now, that being said, they would, of course, really turned things around, and by 1996, especially the summer, and pretty much through to the early part of 98, they were really dominating, even as WWF is trying to do some good things. So, yeah, Albany Civic Center, Albany, Georgia, where half the crowd is inbred and the other half wouldn't admit it. I'm sorry to everybody in Albany, Georgia who happens to be watching this with internet access, all four of you. So, let's go to facts and figures. 1991, 6,000 people in St. Petersburg, 150,000 pay-per-view buys. I believe that was Flair and Fujinami having their rematch. And that was overbooked and messy. 1992, easily my favorite Superbrawl event, if we're being perfectly honest. You had Liger and Pillman. Some great tag team action. But Liger and Pillman is a match that still sticks out in my mind. So, yeah, they were in Milwaukee in front of around 5,000 people. Just a few more bought this event. 160,000 pay-per-view buys. Okay, that's pretty goddamn good. And then we go to 1993 Super Brawl event. 6,500 people in Asheville, North Carolina. Jim Cornette talked about that, where Bill Watts was removed from power. Bill Watts kind of removed himself from power with a couple of things that he allegedly said. Let's just say there is a reason why there was a hush clause with Heyman receiving a large payout. Heyman is Jewish. I don't really need you to put two and two together. I'm just saying. If it wasn't Watts, it was somebody else. Just saying. But 95,000 pay-per-view buys, so ouch. I mean, yeah, WCW had management issues, Watts notwithstanding, but even though there was some really good in-ring action in 92, yeah, but 93, they were starting to erode. Even with some great towns. 1995, 13,390 people. That was in Baltimore. 180,000 pay-per-view buys. So, okay, pretty goddamn good. I believe it was Hogan versus Vader. And various others. And that was when it became the Hogan Show. 1996. Just months before they would bring in Hall and Nash. And Hogan would turn heel. And a lot of good things would happen. And I will be reviewing, or retro-reviewing rather, Slamboree 1996 at some point. The very last pay-per-view before all that happened. 7,200 people back in St. Petersburg, Florida. 210,000 pay-per-view buys. So good. Let's go. Let's just get to it. Let's just get to this goddamn stuff. So, yeah, the radio voiceover guy runs on the card, and then Ric Flair is shown in Gold's Gym, purple. And also with those teal goddamn, exercise seat covers in those gyms. We had a lot of weird color schemes in the 90s. I vividly remember those. Some of those are still the case when I worked at the YMCA in town back in 2000. Hard to believe. So he's run up the steps. He's going to outrun Vader. He didn't have to outrun Vader because one, they were in a cage, and two, he just beat the shit out of him. More on that later. Shivani and Heenan welcome us. Ventura would not be part of the company much longer after this. And they run down the card, they recount changes, such as Michael Hayes was supposed to team up with Johnny B. Bad in a tag match. But on a recent WCW Saturday night, he turned on him. So Johnny B. Bad comes out, uses his bad blaster, and blasts his, glittery goodness all over everybody. Have fun unseeing that. Went from the kiss that don't miss to the fist that don't miss. She should have... Nope, not finishing that. Jimmy Garvin pushes Michael Hayes out in a wheelchair, and he says, I'm injured, I slipped. Commissioner Nick Bockwinkel, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time, in all honesty. At least in the pseudo-modern era at this point. I mean, great AWA champion, well-respected, worked in Houston, worked in Memphis, doing the outside shots as well. So, Hayes is injured. In reality, Hayes had actually been offered a $75,000 a year contract, and he had to cut in half. Didn't want to stick around. And, it is what... Hayes wasn't going to be valuable. I mean, he was barely valuable as an in-ring worker in his prime, but he could talk. Bischoff was moving in another direction. Wanted to get rid of more of the Southern wrestling people. I don't blame him for getting rid of Hayes. But Garvin is going to end up replacing Michael Hayes. Garvin, who had not really wrestled all that much, and Garvin, who was 42 years old and looked about 62 in the ring. Gary Michael Capetta was the ring announcer. And we have Harlem Heat, who were not known as Stevie Ray and Booker T. They were known as Kane and Cole. Maybe I flipped those names around. Regardless, Kane and Cole. They took on Thunder and Lightning. I don't know who the hell Thunder was. He sort of looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. Lightning was the future NWO Sting, a.k.a. Jeff Farmer. And, yeah, this featured a lot of arm work. It was a very disarming show, as it were. And, yeah, Harlem Heat wins in about 10 minutes. I don't know which one they pinned. I don't really fucking care. This match was okay. Wasn't great. Thunder and Lightning were very much an early 90s team. I mean, good grief. Mean Gene then is outside Flair's locker room, which is conveniently right near Vader's locker room. That's good. I imagine that the Albany Civic Center is probably not all that big. And then we have the Equalizer, Dave Sullivan, or EVAD, as he was known later. Yeah, WCW had some real shit gimmicks, such as Jungle Jim Steele. I don't know who the fuck Jim Steele is. I mean, he looked okay. He kind of looked like if Jim Powers, the Ultimate Warrior, and Tom McGee had a bastard baby. That's terrible. I'm sure he came from a great home life. But jungle music for Jim Steele. What the fuck was this shit? Dave Sullivan could never wrestle. Jim Steele, if they said this was his first WCW pay-per-view. And by Christ, could you tell? This was terrible. He hit the Thez press known as the steel trap. Yeah, I would have rather been put in a bear steel trap than watch this shit again. And yeah, he wins it. This was about 6.5 minutes and felt at least 11 or 12. Mean Gene then plugs a hotline, and here's Ricky Steamboat and Nick Bockwinkel. And I love Ricky Steamboat. I recently reviewed the biography the biography of him on WWE or WWE A&E co-promotion. And he could be fired up in a promo, and my God, when he wasn't given much to say, he just looked confused. And I love Ricky. Natural babyface, the best natural babyface in professional wrestling history, at least on a national platform. But yeah, he talked about facing either Flair or Vader at Spring Stampede 94, which arguably Flair versus Steamboat at that pay-per-view is one of their forgotten matches. I would have liked to have forgotten this next match. It was Diamond Dallas Page, nothing against him, who was going through one of his many gimmick changes. Had a pretty attractive brunette as the Diamond Doll. I wonder what she's been up to lately. No, it wasn't Kimberly Page. I don't think it was. No, it wasn't Kimberly Page. Against Terry Taylor, who had the Red Rooster robe and everything, and can never escape that. I can never escape this, at least as quick as I wanted to, is Battle of the Network hair. So, DDP would come really, really far in 2 to 3 years. It dragged a bit. It went about 12 minutes, and a roll-up got the victory, so there you are. Not big match analysis on these retro reviews, unless there's something to really, really praise or really, really rant about. You're going to notice that these reviews run a little bit shorter, even with the facts and figures. So, Mean Gene is with a guy named Olivier Moffler, who's a German broadcast guy, who does voice dubs, and tomorrow will belong to him. Maybe shouldn't have said that, but let's just move on from it. He talks about how being at WCW Superbrawl is an honor for him, and they're going to have events over in Germany. At some point, that's actually where Cactus would lose his ear, and he would actually lose his ear in 93. and it would not be the Reich stuff. So, Heenan then interprets what the guy said and, just yells and translating Germany and the German language, as it were, as I stumble into this goddamn transition. And Heenan was great here. Johnny B. Bad then took on Jimmy Garvin, and yeah, this should have gone 5 minutes. It went 10 and a half, almost 11. Garvin was 42 and washed his goddamn fuck. Garvin was never the best worker, but he was always a great heel. He could work with Chris Adams. They worked great in World Class. He was great in the AWA. But, my God. Later Garvin got hit with a punch, and then Sunset Flip off the top 1, 2, 3. And then they did a post-match beatdown after Johnny B. Bad tried to go on the ramp, because they had the ramp leading to the ring, to get Michael Hayes. And then Garvin would hit him with a stunner variation. And it may seem like this is going to lead to an angle. No, it didn't lead to an angle. So, Johnny B. Bad, who was somebody that they were trying to push, just got laid out by two guys that never appeared again on this program in any capacity. I mean, I don't think Garvin wrestled in WCW again. If he did, it was on WCW Saturday Night or Pro or Worldwide. Mean Gene then goes to Dr. Vader, who is swinging a chair, and Harley Race is trying to calm him down or telling him to pretend that it is one of Harley Race's wives, because Harley Race was just like that. As great of a wrestler as he was, check out the goddamn Dark Side of the Ring and you'll know. And Lord Steven Regal took on Arn Anderson in a TV title match, not 15 minutes, but a 30-minute time limit. Sir William, the man that loved to hold his umbrella, Ella, and help out Lord Steven Regal. Goddamn Michael Buffer ruining things. He was never good. He was better for boxing. He was not good for wrestling. I'm sorry, he just wasn't. So, very well worked, as you would expect. I would argue this did not need to go 30 minutes, so. I mean, it was good, but the crowd is starting to get tired of it. This was 4 times as long as a couple of the matches on this show. 3 times as long as a few others. I don't know. The crowd was getting tired. Arn at one point took a tumble outside and ended up with a bunch of Bad's glitter all over his back. Have fun on seeing that. That's a Bad enforcing blaster. And Sir William ended up using his giant umbrella, his lengthy black umbrella, to help Regal gain the victory in just about 30 minutes, just before the time limit expired. It was well wrestled, but I think you could have shaved some time off of this and it would have been all right. Maybe add another match. Because, great as it was, just saying, did drag a bit. Heenan then Fox whistles at a very attractive blonde who was a ringside attendant or something. I don't know. Max Payne and Cactus Jack took on the Nasty Boys, and when Cactus Jack was the best worker of anybody in this ring, and Foley, love Foley, bless the hell out of him, was never a natural worker, but could always tell a story through great impact, and was able to tell a story through his emotions. Max Payne was, I guess, okay. The Nasty Boys always fucking sucked, but they worked when you made it short and sweet. And there was a bit of nice wrestling in the beginning by Payne and Cactus Jack. By the way, Max Payne later became Man Mountain Rock. Not that you could tell by looking at him. Nasty Boys were terrible, absolutely terrible. And this Cactus took the plunge onto the concrete. He was bleeding from the mouth. People say, oh, it must have been a blood cast. I think he might have been legit bleeding. But then, the Nasty Boys had earlier brought a guitar to the ring. The guitar got busted because even the guitar didn't want to be around the Nasty Boys. They used a guitar to cause a DQ. And that's it. That would continue it to Spring Stampede 94, where Cactus would pretty much just say he wasn't really motivated to be there, even though that was a better match than this, because they leaned into the fact that the Nasty Boys, again, couldn't work. Mean Gene is with Flair in his locker room. Here's Steamboat and Arn to encourage him. Thunder Cage lowers with all the pyro and everything. Doot. This doesn't look like pyro at all. It's like, we have the man called Sting Pillman, and Dustin against Austin, Rude, and Orndorff. And the fact that only 3 of these guys are left alive, and 2 of these guys wouldn't even make it out of the decade. Orndorff, even though he suffered health issues later in his life, got to live to at least an older age. But Rude would die in 99, Pillman would die in 97. Rob Parker was at ringside, Thunder Cage. And it makes sense. Sting and Rude were having their feud. You go all the way back to 1991 when Rude became, I believe, the TV or U.S. champion. I think it was the U.S. champion, actually, and Austin became the TV champion. Pillman and Austin were the Hollywood Blondes and had been feuding, and then they blew that whole thing off at the November 93 Clash. Dustin and Austin had just wrestled at Starrcade 1993, and Orndorff was also there. Poor Orndorff. I mean, Orndorff had interactions with these guys, but just, I don't know. The crowd loved the man called Sting. Some people had face paint on. Good thing, hides the natural faces of people in Albany, Georgia. I don't know what the people of Albany, Georgia did, but I think at some points I saw a full row of front teeth, in the first row of people. If you were in attendance for this, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Paula chants because homophobia is funny. That was directed at Paul Orndorff, by the way. Crowd was very up for this. I don't know why they bothered having tags. It was no DQ, and they just battled. And Pillman pinned Austin, and the fight raged on. Rude awakening on the goddamn floor. I don't really have anything to say about this. It was just a wild 6-man brawl. They had the crowd up. They popped for everything the faces did. And this showed that Austin could work even back then. Before his injury, I mean, Austin could work back even in 91, 92, would do incredible shit in front of no people because he just wanted to show what he could do. But then injuries started to take hold, and then the neck injury at SummerSlam 97, he had to basically change his style. Commentary talks about Flair and Vader. We see what happened where Flair got his back focused on. He got the medical clearance because he wanted to take down Vader, even though he had beaten Vader in Charlotte, North Carolina at Starrcade 93. He wanted revenge. So Harley Race was there at ringside. Thunder Cage match. WCW title on the line. The WCW title looks an awful lot like the Winged Eagle belt because WCW was trying to get away from the NWA at this point. And then they had Ray Traylor, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man, known here as the Boss. Gee, you're cutting real close to that trademark line. He was the enforcer. Flair attacked with a chair. Vader targeted the back. Race interfered. Then the Boss. They had to change that to the Guardian Angel pretty soon after. I wonder why. But nevertheless, they should just go with Big Bubba. Just go with Big Bubba. You can remind people of the territory days because Big Bubba at least was over. Unlike Jungle fucking Jim Steele in The Equalizer. And Thunder and Lightning, very, very frightening. And Terry Taylor in a match in 1994. And Jimmy Garvin in the ring in 1994. And basically, this pay-per-view was kind of annoying me at this point, even though the crowd was very up for the main events. But, yeah, Vader targeted the back. Ray Traylor tried to handcuff Harley Race. And Harley Race Harley Race along with Vader were able to get, Ray Traylor cuffed because it is cuffing season. I don't think that's how that works, but I'm 43 years old and white. So, Vader does, something, it just does some, cool stuff because Vader's just dominant. But then he immediately gets, nullified by Flair just attacking. Arn and Steamboat are trying to get in the ring. The Boss got free to do what he wants any old time, and the Figure 4 wins it, even though Heenan said Vader never gave up. So Vader's all upset, and then this would lead to Vader and Ray Traylor having a feud. Flair retained the title, and it made sense. I guess, kind of. They didn't really want to beat Vader, but at the same time, they had to keep the title on Flair because of what he had just done. And also, they were going to lead to, combining the International Incident Championship, the International Object Championship, as it were. Because Ted Turner didn't want to call a foreign object, and that. So commentary decided to call him an international object. Bob Caudle and JR came up with that, and it was genius. Genius way to mock Ted Turner, which is easy to do. Glitzy glue. There you go. That's an old reference. So with that being said, at least a good close with a 1-2 punch at Thunder Cage matches, and the crowd was into those. But God, there was some fucking filler on this. And I know that it's very much a product of the time, but there are some pay-per-views from the 90s, you know, the early and mid-90s that have aged well, and some like this where, Jesus, besides the 2 main events, what the fuck else do you need to revisit? Even Arn and Regal was good, but too long. So agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.